Well, good afternoon or good morning, depending on what part of the country you're in today. On behalf of the Common Ground Alliance, I would like to welcome you to today's webinar. My name is Chris Kerr, Vice President of Marketing and Outreach for the CGA, and coming to you from my home office here in relatively sunny Florida today. So want to make sure that we go through a couple of tips in case you haven't been on any webinars this year. But we're using the GoToWebinar meeting functionality, and that allows us to mute the audience. And all you will hear are the speakers today. But you do have the ability to raise your hand and go through some protocols today that we can actually talk to you. I would encourage you to make sure to join your audio pin. That's kind of your digital thumbprint that we know who you are when we need to go and unmute later on today in the Q&A section. You can also ask questions using the text box and certainly raise your hand to join the conversation. I'm going to have some of my colleagues here today help moderate today's town hall type session. GoTo's done some improvements if you haven't been on it this week. There's some additional buttons here where you can see full screen, raise your hand, mute and unmute your microphone. We do have some handouts and some takeaways for you at the very end. It's also a point that I'd like to point out that this webinar is being recorded. So with that, we will move on to the next slide and talk about today's agenda. We're going to allow plenty of time for Q&A because we have some CGA members here today to chat with you that can provide some genuine insight into the member benefits of being a part of the Common Ground Alliance. So you can see the sections that we're going to do today, and this is interactive. We've got some polling functionality, and we want to hear from you. So first of all, the faces with the names of CGA. First of all, the President and CEO of the Common Ground Alliance, Sarah Magruder-Lyle. Also joining me today is Erica Lee, Vice President, and the first employee of CGA, myself, and you'll also see Lisa O'Leary, who manages our education, Kathleen Manor, who handles the money, Sarah Daly, organizing all things great that we're doing today, Steve Blaney handles all of our data and technology and helps with the DIRT report that we'll speak to a little bit later on today. And lastly, the employee of the month, and she gets it every month, Callie, our office dog, who resides at the main office in Alexandria, Virginia. So joining us on today's panel, we have Mr. Corey Wilson with the 3M Corporation. And Corey led the 3M initiative for GPS mapping in the locating field and was recently awarded a patent for GPS interface to a locating device. Corey has conducted training seminars online, as well as in the US, Asia Pacific, Latin America, and Europe, and has worked with some of the largest utility companies in the US and abroad. His leadership runs deep at CGA and is a legacy member of the organization and current board member at CGA. We also have with us today Tracy Bryant with Centerpoint Energy, joining us from Evansville, Indiana. And Tracy is the current co-chair of the Educational Programs and Marketing Committee at the CGA, managing Centerpoint Energy's integrated public awareness program, as well as serving in various leadership positions in a myriad of industry associations. Tracy has been a contributor to the CGA for more than a decade. And last but not least, Mr. Jason Adams, fellow Ohio State Buckeye fan and President, Chief Executive Officer of 4IQ, currently managing the development and positioning of the Corsetra certification and tracking system, as well as the most advanced one-call ticket creation platform, Exactix. He's active in advancing the CGA mission through committee participation, and Jason is a thought leader when it comes to the next generation of underground damage prevention. So with that, we're going to launch a poll. We want to get to know you. So CGA Sarah Daly is launching a poll right now, and we're trying to gather some intel about how much your awareness level with the CGA. So we're collecting those responses now. It looks like many of you have used these polling features that WebEx provides prior to. And let's go ahead and close that poll, Sarah D. And it looks like almost 80% of you are somewhat familiar with CGA, and very few of you are unfamiliar. So that's good. We've got a good baseline right now of understanding your knowledge level. So We will move on to the next slide today and talk a little bit about the CGA mission. And our sole purpose is to reduce damage to the nation's infrastructure and to protect those who live and work near it. And we do that by bringing together a myriad of stakeholders. We have over 240 member companies and 1,700 individual members. And, you know, the staff I listed up front, that's the whole CGA. You know, we are 8 of us, and we are led by our committee members, by our volunteers, and that's how we accomplish all of our work products here at CGA. So whether you're a legacy member or you're just learning about us here today, that is how the work gets done. We want to talk a little bit about the CGA mission and goals too. You know, we really look at education, stakeholder engagement, and information and analysis as the core and fundamental value of what CGA provides. As we go through this presentation, you'll hear from our members about how they have the opportunity to learn about the industry needs, about how we can grow damage prevention and move it forward, how we execute research and learn about the challenges and dig a little deeper to get to that root cause, and how we all come together to talk through it. And even though we have 16 different stakeholder groups, when we're in that room, everybody is focused on one common goal at the Common Ground Alliance, and that's to get to zero damages and move those yardsticks forward. And this is where we look at who the damage prevention players are. One call. Each state has at least one call before you dig center, handling requests, processing information, and educating potential diggers on the damage prevention process. We also have gas transmission, distribution, and oil. Telecom. As we all sit in these virtual environments right now, never has that fiber optic cable outside your door been so vital to e-learning, e-working, social media, news gathering, streaming, TV. So we really look to engage those folks. Electric, same, public works, our water resources. Locators, you know, those who actually physically mark the approximate location of our buried facilities, and those who dig, the excavators and road builders. And then you can see at the bottom, we have the state regulators, engineering, equipment manufacturers, insurance, emergency services, and also railroad, you know, the nation's largest landowners. All of these folks have a stake in underground damage prevention and help us raise the bar. So when we talk about this, I want to bring up Mr. Corey Wilson. As we talk about what we do here at CGA, you know, and Corey coming on camera now, he really provided his LinkedIn background, but, you know, Corey has a vast knowledge of working within CGA. And as we bring him up on the screen, Corey, can you hear me now?
I'm here. Yep.
Good to see you today,
me?
Corey.
Yeah.
I can. You sound good down there in Texas. So I'm glad you could join us today. Tell me, how long have you been involved with CGA?
About 12 years, I think. And 3M has been involved with the CGA since it was founded.
Awesome. Awesome. And what do you and 3M find to be the most valuable attributions or resources provided by the CGA?
Well, we use the data report and the best practices as it relates to the products of the CGA. But other things that are super valuable is just the interaction with other industry professionals. It allows us to learn from others. Also, it's a development opportunity for young professionals as well. My company places a high value on actions that improve the world around us, and that fits in right in with that. But part of our vision is 3M innovation, improving every life. In the CGA, we can actually save lives. It's always been something we've talked about in the board is, you know, we saved a life. We don't know who it was, but, you know, we did the right thing and we made a difference. From a personal professional perspective, I've been active in the CGA for some time now, and I've developed lifelong friendships. There's folks who are my friends, my peers in the industry. If I got a question, you know, there's folks I know I can pick up the phone and call, right?
That's awesome, and I think that's a key to our success. And you know, when we execute surveys, we, you know, as a member-driven association, you're our member, not our customer, and we need to find out what's important to you. And you know, 78% of our members find the most valuable asset CGA provides is our networking opportunity and our peer-to-peer development. So It's good to see a company as big as 3M finding that type of value in our small association. So from a board perspective, how important is it to grow the CGA membership?
Well, growth allows us to make a larger impact on damage prevention. There's a benefit from just, additional funding, but I think also a greater impact is with growth comes new stakeholders and new ideas and different perspectives. Our consensus process ensures that our work represents the entire utility ecosystem, so to speak, and everyone has a voice. So when we look at our ability to influence change, it's a big deal that we're able to bring all stakeholders together to the table and reach consensus.
It is a big deal. And, I'm sure many on this call last week watched the presidential debate. That's about as deep into politics as we're getting today. And although not nearly complex, we have opposite sides of the fence addressing critical damage prevention challenges all of the time. What do you think is the secret sauce here at CGA for advancing the damage prevention yardstick?
Well, it's about the process. It starts with a good representation from all stakeholders, vision and tactics that drive continuous improvement. With that backdrop, our members are collaborating and learning what they can do to make a difference and being part of that solution. So a large part of a secret sauce, right, is our committee work. We make it fun, we're inclusive and stimulating, and our members become engaged, encouraged, and energized. Then they take that back to their jobs with them. It's always been the same with me. After our regular meetings, I go home kind of with a buzz from the conversations we had over the week, smile on my face, and I've got something new that stretched my perspective, gives me something to think about and grow with, to challenge myself to think differently.
Awesome to hear, Corey, and I concur with that. And I thank you for your leadership. I thank you for your dedication. As a board member, you lead by example and are part of that secret sauce. So we'll go ahead and take you off camera and bring you back up later today. And we'll have Sarah D is also going to execute another poll now. We kind of want to gauge your familiarity with some of the CGA core program, trying to understand a little bit more about who you work for and what you do. So let's see here. You saw all of our stakeholder groups, and we're trying to determine where everybody fits in here. So Sarah D, go ahead and close that poll for me, please. And I'm going to read these results while we ready up the next poll here. 44% by utility company, 33% work in another field. We've got some government and some in technology. While we're in the polling mood, we're going to go ahead and jump into the next poll. And this one is going to ask you a little bit more about the CGA programs and resources and your familiarity with some of our work products. And hopefully some of these sound familiar to you, but if they don't, not to worry. We're going to chat through them. But we want to know if you've seen, heard, or read the CGA best practices, our DIRT report, if you know about 811, our technology report, and some of our white papers that we're going to cover here in the next section. All right, let's go ahead and close that poll, Sarah D. Awesome. The CGA best practices from boardroom to courtroom are the backbone of the CGA, and almost 80% of you are familiar with those. The DIRT report, again, the most comprehensive data we have on damages and near miss. It's good to know. Some of you have actually seen the 811 public awareness campaign, and we're going to focus a little bit more on the technology report and excavator white paper as we move through this presentation, since that seems to be the least known there. So again, when you're looking at our core programs, the best practices is available to download online at no charge and offered at a reduced rate to our member companies. But it's very important to take a look and be familiar with this book. Or was agreed upon by all of our stakeholder groups. Again, the 811 public awareness campaign, we'll speak a little bit more to that. And we also have the damage information reporting tool, DIRT, and really speaks to understanding the damages and why they are occurring and how we can build programs and resources and campaigns to mitigate them. And then the technology report. I think this is where, during this type of environment, we're making significant strides in looking at new ways to do business. We're all being challenged with that every day, and technology is playing a bigger and bigger role in how we're going to improve the damage prevention process. 17 versions that we've published of the CGA best practices, and version 18 will be out next March. Approximately 170 practices in there, and you know, they evolve every year. It's a living document. You know, when we built the best practices 17 years ago, you know, there wasn't virtual learning, there wasn't the 811 call before you dig number. So we continue to evolve, and you know, that task team, there's 6 current task teams working on new practices, but that committee alone, I think, has more than 150 CGA members on it. And, you know, any CGA member can populate and be active on a CGA committee. And as Corey spoke to earlier, that's where our biggest energy comes, and that's helping the secret sauce for damage prevention to move the yardsticks forward. 811, call before you dig. You know, this was launched back in 2007. The goal was to increase awareness of 811 and to build one common brand. You know, if I say 911 right now, everybody on this call and your neighbors and peers know what 911 means. You know, we had 50 different states with 50 different URLs, 50 different 800 numbers, 50 different campaigns and mascots. And this really galvanized and solidified, you know, one common message and one common brand. And we continue to measure that brand every year. And we continue to educate the industry and the public about the total damage prevention process through it. And one important thing to note, when you see an ad campaign out there, odds are it wasn't brought to you by the CGA. It was brought to you by one of our members. We typically don't buy advertising, but as we bring another poll up, we have sponsored some high-profile activities where we call those collaborative efforts. And as we bring up the next poll, we want to know if you've seen the 811 logo on any of these following assets. And they're pretty wide and varied. You know, have you seen the 811 message on any of these items, or think they've been a part of them? So let's see here as we're still collecting this data. All right, we'll go ahead and close that poll. Spot on. We've been on more than 56 NASCARs over the past decade. Many of them brought to us by our CGA Platinum sponsor, Shell Pipeline. And we have been on the number 22, driven by Joey Logano. And not to be outdone, back in the day when 3M had a car, Corey Wilson got the 811 logo on Greg Biffle's car. There's a throwback in the Wayback Machine. But we actually had the 811 on 2 NASCARs at Talladega Super Speedway. That was the first time a nonprofit had ever been on 2 actual cars at Talladega, and we actually won that race. Not on the 3M car, but Kevin Harvick took the 22 to victory lane, if you want to think about how far back that one was. We have Mr. Mark Strell, host of the Direction television show there that's it's been airing on the Pursuit channel. We've also had the 811 on a couple hot air balloons. We've had a corn maze in Arizona. And we have also been on several jockeys in the Kentucky Derby, including this past one where we finished in 2nd place to Authentic with our sponsored 'Tis the Law. And we actually had the mask created with the theme 811 'Tis the Law. So always looking for unique ways to get that message out there front and center to potential diggers. So we'll close that poll and move on here to the 2019 DIRT report that is coming soon. And I would encourage you to take a look at it. The 2019 DIRT report is going to be new. It's going to be fresh. It's going to provide relevant and meaningful data, really looking at what does the damage cost? How does it impact our day-to-day lives? And then what did we learn from it? And what actual educational programs can we go and build to mitigate how these damages are happening? There's also a real-time dashboard. If you don't want to look at stats on the national level and you want to get granular to your state, you can pull those reports and build your own presentations and knowledge base and compare your state to the actual national level. So not only do we do webinars like this, but we have very integrated webinars where we teach you how to use the data. where we talk about the data. And that's one of the benefits of a CGA membership, is being able to interface, interact, ask those questions, and get access to much more than just a high-level report. We have a system where there's general damage prevention information made available free of charge to the general public. But once you're into CGA and become a member, it provides you much more access to much more material and information. And kind of to take us through some of those, that other information, I'm going to bring up, and on camera joining me is going to be Erica Lee, CGA's Vice President, who all things CGA and relevant expert on some of our damage information. So Erica, I can advance the slides for you if you just want to call them out.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chrisanne. And I'm going to actually, kind of start by talking about the last slide and a little bit about how we got into working more closely on some additional analysis and research, really at looking at the DIRT report. If you look at incident data and you're focused on, the information that we can glean from incidents and damages and near misses that are happening across the country, we're able to identify that there are specific areas that we need to take a closer look at. A couple of years ago, we really started to take a close look at all incidents that had a root cause that was related to an excavator issue. Really was a significant portion of root cause information coming out of the DIRT report, and realized that we had a lot of information that was being submitted into the tool from the locator industry and from facility owners, but did not have as much data as we would like, and really the viewpoint of the excavator was not represented as broadly in the DIRT report. So we worked with a third-party research firm that we've worked with for years and executed national data, quantitative and qualitative, on the excavator industry. And we published our first CGA white paper in 2019. Really, you can see the cover here. It's a comprehensive look at, insights and recommendations for more effective excavator outreach. And beyond that, we've really started to take a closer look at additional analysis and where we can, dive deeper into additional viewpoints across the stakeholder spectrum. So with that, we're moving into additional locator research, and I think that's our next slide. Okay. So one of the things that we looked at, if you kind of take the DIRT report and you look at the different areas where we really grouped together root cause information, we have the excavator issues, and a big one is also the locator issues, and really taking a close look at when an incident occurs, when a damage occurs, why, how in a locator issue has occurred, how do we improve that process, and how do we learn more about making, the locating process more accurate and timely from the locator's perspective. So again, we kicked off a research initiative with our third-party contractor. We did quantitative research, and then we did in-depth interviews with not only management at locating companies and utilities, but also went out and surveyed locate technicians themselves. We are in the final stages of pulling together all that research, and we'll be putting that out to our members in the next 3 weeks. And as Chrisanne mentioned, I think one of the greatest opportunities we have as being a multi-stakeholder association, we have input from all of the affected stakeholders. Way back when Chrisanne talked about us first starting, one of the reasons that Common Ground Alliance was established was really getting everybody to the table to start to dig deeper and look at, the problems that we can only solve if we all work together. When we start to really take a closer look at each of these industries and elevate some of the challenges that they're having as an industry when it comes to damage prevention, I think we can all work together as an industry, as a collective, to solve some of those challenges. And next up, and I think we're going to launch a poll sometime during this, but I'm going to start with talking a little bit about the Next Practices Initiative. And if you think about the two items that I just talked about, as well as the DIRT report, a lot of what we've been focused on, and one of our main kind of core buckets that we focus on is information and analysis. And a lot of what it's telling us is that we've hit a plateau in damage prevention. We are not, we like to say that we've kind of hit a lot of the low-hanging fruit. And now we as an industry, as I talked about with these last couple white papers, really realize that we have to kind of take a look at some of the challenges that still exist out there, and how can we as an industry, really work together and make sure that we are pushing the ball forward And what we launched was the Next Practices Initiative. And this is intended to not, it's cleverly got the terminology that's close to the best practices. But if you look at the best practices, those are the best practices that exist today. It's very, very specific in the bylaws of the committee. When you're talking about a best practice, it has to be documented, it has to exist. And we tend to think in that process. And we wanted to kick off an initiative that helped us look forward. Okay, we still have this challenge. We've identified that these are the root cause issues. Existing practices either are not being implemented effectively or they're not meeting the mark. How do we get to that next level? So we're going to use innovation, we're going to use data, and we're going to collectively kind of call on the industry to identify methods, strategies to address some of these challenges. As you can see, the focus is to use the industry data, quantitative surveys. We launched a survey. Hopefully many of you have received. It went out to our members, and we'll touch on this, I believe, toward the end. But if you have not, it's on our website. And it's a survey asking about really those core damage prevention challenges. And with that, we're going to go ahead and launch poll number 5. This is not comprehensive when you're thinking of all of the different challenges that are identified in the survey, but this covers a couple of them. So if you could just please select the top issue that you think is the greatest challenge to damage prevention right now. Give everybody a couple of seconds here to complete that. All right, so you can go ahead and close it and share the results. Okay, so interesting results here. It looks like the highest number here was the inaccurate and outdated facility maps, which we definitely hear a lot about in our discussions, excavator errors in the field, followed by awareness of call before you dig. So definitely shared by a lot of the results that we've seen in our surveys to date. And so I would just keep an eye out. This is information that we'll be sharing with our membership and beyond in the coming weeks. And then finally, to touch on the damage prevention technology report. We have a technology committee that's been around since the beginning. Their focus is really to identify where are there gaps in technology and where are there new technologies that are addressing damage prevention challenges. How do we bring those to the forefront? That's definitely a key part of the Next Practices Initiative as well. How do we make sure this technology that can solve some of these challenges gets, advances and is utilized by the damage prevention community?
Hey, thanks, Erica. Erica will be back on camera at the end of the meeting today to answer any additional questions that you may have. So before we jump into the next section of committee work, we've got another poll for you that we're going to bring up. We certainly appreciate you spending part of your day with us today. We know that time's valuable, and it may feel like there's just meetings upon meetings. So we wanted to make this time valuable and informative and interactive, and trying to understand what makes the most sense and what's important and what's the value that you find in association. So Sarah, do you go ahead and close the poll in a little more than 10? Yeah. There's some online meeting fatigue that's been going on, but with that being the case, we're going to keep it moving. And we're going to go back to the good old days when our committees would meet face-to-face 4 times a year, and look forward to the day that happens again. But until then, we are doing a lot of work virtually. And, typically CGA committees, I said, meet 4 times a year. And, this past July, our meetings were fully virtual as a safety organization. Obviously, your health and safety is our primary consideration. We had more than 400 people attend those committee meetings virtually, and 62 people for the first time, because it gave an opportunity and a forum to invite you in without having to jump on a plane. And when you think about our CGA committees, we talked about our work products, and each one of those work products has a committee that builds it, that fosters it, nurtures it, grows it, and then markets it. So there's something for everybody, whether you're in the operations, engineering, public awareness, innovation, business development. There's a committee for you at CGA that should spark your interest. And this is kind of a high-level overview. And And certainly, we always offer the ability to teleconference in. And I think moving forward, obviously, we're going to continue with a hybrid situation for our face-to-face and as well as doing some online meetings, because the tools and resources, they're becoming very, very successful. And we're getting really good input. Educational programs and marketing committee, building all things educational. We have a whole variety of toolkits on commongroundalliance.com. And, you know, there's over 200 versions of the 811 logo. We look at videos for children, for ag. We have an actual program geared towards 4-H. Should you get your Eagle Scout, you can get a badge. Data reporting and evaluation, you know, Eric and I both touched on that. And that report is vital to the success and leaned on by all other industry associations when it comes to underground damage prevention and why the damages are occurring. Then taking a look at near miss, looking at different sectors of business and seeing maybe why gas distribution's data doesn't necessarily align with the national report and pulling that out as a subset. The technology committee, this is an exciting committee. You know, the technology report this year was probably one of our most well-attended webinars. People really wanting to find out about innovation and not only what's cutting edge, what's bleeding edge here at CGA. And we'll talk a little bit about the upcoming 2021 CGA conference, and I think you can expect to see a lot of those technologies on display there. We also talk about One Call Systems International, OCSI, and the great work that our One Call centers do, not only with handling calls, but educating at job sites, positioning virtual learning, really pivoting, the most overused word of 2020, in this new environment to make sure we stay relevant and getting that education out in front of would-be diggers. Our regional partners committee, you know, these folks are the boots on the ground working on critical issues, and we've seen very successful meetings that they're having virtually. And lastly, our stakeholder outreach committee. You know, each state has a one-call law, and they change annually. And staying up to date with who's moving the yardsticks, what's new, what exemptions, what roadblocks could potentially be out there. And, you know, these committees do the lion's share of the work of building our programs and resources. They're led by volunteer co-chairs who have real day jobs. So we really work to strategically look at the 1,000 things the industry wants done and really focus on what we can manage and do really great work on. And hats off to these committees. They do it every year. So we're going to launch another poll now, and I don't want you to get poll fatigue. We're almost done with them, but, you know, in planning towards the future and looking at folks on this call, you know, we're kind of trying to understand how many of you may have participated in some of the events that I spoke about, whether it be a regional partner meeting, or I know, I think the Arkansas Damage Prevention Summit is forthcoming. I know the Alabama one is going to be the first week in December, and I know we're looking at February for the Texas one, but just seeing if any of you have participated in any of this type of training. So if you'll take that poll real quick, we can go ahead and give that a close there, Dee. Wow, it looks like virtual or online training leading the charge. Very, very interesting. And we'll chat a little bit more about that later in this presentation. But right now, we're going to bring up a longtime friend of CGA, coming to us live from Evansville, Indiana, Tracy Bryant with CenterPoint Energy. We'll bring her camera up as she is co-chair of the CGA Educational Programs and Marketing Committee. Tracy, how you doing today?
Hey, great. Christine, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Hey, we're glad to have you.
Yeah.
And you even got the memo about the required uniform today, huh?
I take instruction well. No.
Awesome, awesome. Product placement there. But tell us a little bit about your job at CenterPoint.
You know, I've been with the company over 20 years, and my career has been with public safety, really focused around damage prevention, and then the public awareness program. So on the gas side of the house, really focused on the RP 1162, overseeing that public awareness program, not only compliance with it, but making sure that what we're doing is really making a difference in the industry and really improving safety. So that's what I'm doing at CenterPoint now. I've got that program for all 9 states.
Busy. We appreciate you taking the time out to be with us today. So, you are an active leader in the Education Committee, and you have been for as long as I can remember, and we're grateful for that legacy of knowledge and consistency. Tell us about the committee's work.
It's one of those things that whenever we start in with the committees, they have evolved over time because the different projects and the needs of the industry change. The folks that I worked with on committees 10 years ago and the topics and the products we were able to build, man, those are just some of the legacy things I look back and have a lot of pride in. And now we're doing totally different things, right? The industry needs are different, fresh ideas coming about, and a whole other group of committee members, which is really exciting. The committees themselves give us a chance to work on things that we're passionate about. So I'll just be honest with you guys, everybody in the best practice committee, you have my heart and soul and kudos, but that's not my cup of tea at all. So, but that's okay, because if that is where your passion is and something that you can thrive in, there's a committee that's going to fit not only the needs of your company, but your personality and what you're wanting to do is maybe your own career development, right? So I have found that over the progression of my 20-year career here, CGA has always had one spot or another where I needed to be in that part of my career. So I really like the committee work, and all the folks that are, come on the committees, whether they're in for the long haul and they may participate on committees for years, or they may be on committees for short-term and specific reasons. And that's perfectly fine too, because a lot of those subject matter experts that join us on these committees, man, they're just a wealth of knowledge, and we all learn from them. Can't explain the amount of information I've learned just from this committee work.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And has the participation in the committees helped you build your network?
Oh, absolutely. There's an opportunity to send out my own SOS and ask somebody, hey, how did you solve this problem? Or I really am struggling here, whether it's something that is just oddball that comes up on my job, or if I'm in a committee meeting here at my own job, if I'm in a corporate office setting here and I need a quick answer, I have those folks at my fingertips. They're used to seeing me either virtually or in person, and we can bounce those ideas off each other and be like, hey, remind me, what was this? And I just really benefit from having the network. I guess old school, I could say my Rolodex has grown, right? How many of us have heard of Rolodex in a while? But,
If you were born after 2000, I don't know what it is. Last question. Obviously you can see the passion. It carries through, and you smile when you talk about the work. It doesn't seem to be painful, but do you find the work satisfying that you do at CGA?
Absolutely. This is one of those, it's like, how do you even answer that question? Because I feel like everything I've talked about, it's about how I've invested myself, not only for the safety of our communities, but to help my career here at Centerpoint, and just to expand on all the goals and things we want to do as an industry. It is extremely satisfying when our work products, you see them making a difference. Whether you're educating people on a best practice of how to call in their tickets, what is the best way for hand digging style, or whatever you're pulling out of it, the dirt report, seeing some of those numbers and the results. I'm a very results-driven person, so the results we've been getting out of CGA are extremely satisfying. And I'll just be honest, some of my best friends in life that I will have for the lifetime have come from my committee work at CGA too. So you add all that up together, and I'll just be honest with you guys, it's the best parts of my day when I get to be on my CGA committee. So I really enjoy it.
Well, Tracy, we appreciate all that you bring to CGA and all that you do for CGA, and we'll bring you back up later on the call. And for those of you wondering, her 20-year career, she started at Centerpoint when she was 12. So we're going to bring up the next poll, and I believe it might be your last one of the day, but trying to get a sense of how much have you traveled for your jobs, and if that's something that was part of your day-to-day or yearly activity at your current job in your current role. Great. We'll go ahead and close that poll. And it looks that, frequently or a few times a year, and a few of you not at all. Just trying to gauge a pulse on that, knowing that, CGA operates in a hybrid and environment, face-to-face, as well as doing a lot of work virtually. And, we're coming up here on the CGA conference, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the culmination of all the work that we do. Underground damage prevention is 52 weeks a year, and we take 1 week out of that year to celebrate the things we've done and ready up for what we're going to do the next year. And, that's going to occur March 2nd through the 5th in Orlando, Florida next year. So we'd encourage you to save the date to be a part of our face-to-face conference where, it's created for our members by our members. It's not your traditional trade show. This is where you can actually do hands-on demonstration. You can go walk the trade show floor with Tracy or with Corey. We're ambassadors to do that if it's your first time attending the show. Industry-leading speakers who are talking about fresh content, relevant data, and really taking a look, as Erica spoke to that next practices of, it's not what have you done for me lately, it's also what are we going to do? The low-hanging fruit is done. In the first 10 years that we launched 811, we reduced damages to the nation's infrastructure by 50%. It's a collective applause from the industry. But now, the tougher things are next. We've got that low-hanging fruit. So, a lot of these discussion topics are going to be at this conference. And, we'd encourage you to attend that. All of our committees will be meeting there. We've got some great keynote events. We've got some awesome network opportunities. And again, not only cutting edge, but bleeding edge technology to talk to, and our board of directors to be on the trade show floor. And it's 3 days of full intensity where you can not only build your understanding of underground damage prevention, but professional development as well. We're really looking to get 750 of the key industry leaders and damage prevention movers and shakers to this environment with 100 exhibitors to really talk about next level underground damage prevention and interact and interface and learn and build from each other, and really walk away from this meeting in March energized as we look at the next year of underground damage prevention. And, we have a really aggressive and integrated advisory panel that's looking at all of the education options together. And we surveyed the membership to really understand what it is that you want to learn if you're going to travel, if you're going to take that time to be, away from your family. And certainly, we're very aware of the current situation, and it changes daily, and the ability to offer some of this information online to you. But, as we plan for the future, this is the way future. This is 2022. I want to remind you to save the date for Anaheim, California, when we go over to the left coast in 2022. And, to talk a little bit about how CGA drives some business goals, we're going to bring up now on camera Jason Adams with 4IQ. And Jason is a longtime friend to CGA as well. You're going to notice a pattern once we bring you into the fold here. Very, very few leave. And when we talk about legacy and knowledge, as with Jason, he's been involved for well over a decade as Tracy and Corey. So we've got Jason coming to us live from Chicago, Illinois, and might get the background of the day, in my opinion, if looks like the virtual happy hour might be there in the corner. Jason, welcome. Tell us a little bit more about 4IQ and those on the call who may not be familiar with the company.
Thanks, Chris-Ann. It's a pleasure to be on here, invited today to speak with you guys. The CGA's played a huge role in my professional career. I've been in damage prevention for about 25 years now. So I've got, I think I was 12 when I started. So just to kind of keep that to the side. But, our company, 4IQ Solutions, started with the idea of how do we make the world a little bit safer. I spent about 18 years working for another technology company and had a great run, but we felt that we could do more And a lot of that was really the messaging that came out of the CGA for us. We felt very confident that we could train people better, that they could learn how to use our platforms better. So we provide both an educational platform for training and assessment. We also create a platform for one-call centers, which are mainly all of my customers are CGA members. So it's very important that I participate in the CGA. It was interesting as you were talking about the upcoming locator white paper and the dirt and that kind of stuff. We're innovating our technologies to try to address where we see deficiencies in the process. And that came directly out of this report. So our members have said, look, our one call centers, we have 11 states that use our Exactix platform, say we want to make the communication better with excavators. So now we're expanding our positive response to have a communication vehicle that hadn't existed before. We now have assessment tools to go through and look at our locators to make sure they're doing quality locates, and we can validate how they're being successful. And if they're missing information, we want to provide that. So for us, we see the CGA as a communication hub where we can really share ideas and bounce information back and forth between all the stakeholders. And what we like about the CGA is that it seems to us the CGA's entire mission is to make the world safer. And so we feel that there's no real challenges. We just want to make it better. So we're very comfortable in our role with the CGA, and all of our time supporting the CGA has been critical to the advancement of our applications.
That's awesome. And you know, you do operate nationally here, and you know, you talked about your customers are CGA members. So how do you reach them through CGA?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's we sit around with just last week we had about 11 of our states interacting in our first virtual user group meeting, and we were all collectively talking about our participation at the CGA and the goals the CGA have aligned with the goals that we have aligned. So it's really nice with that. But we also do a lot of work with stakeholders too, a lot of large utility companies that use our damage prevention platform of tools. And so to hear where their struggles are, and then be able to, for us, we're a data company, right? So we want to know what the data tells us. So when my members say, let's make sure we're getting everybody to send their data to DIRT, we're trying to help with that process as well, because we know our end product of being safer results in less damages, but we can't really judge our productivity and how successful we are without that data. So I encourage everyone that's on this call to participate in those kind of areas, because it's the data that lets us fine tune what we're trying to build in the future. So it's funny, if I look at our Blackboard at all of our new enhancements that we have coming down the pipeline, every single one of them come out through the conversations with the CGA and our members.
Awesome, awesome. And you know, you not only exhibit at the CGA conference, you know, you participate. Yeah. You know, what would you tell someone on the call who might be on the fence about either joining CGA or participating in our conference?
Oh, look, this is the only way to connect to our audience. All right. I mean, it's for us as a small business in a very small vertical, which is damage prevention. All of us are very familiar with each other, but it's that outside group that doesn't have it. And I'd echo what the other two speakers said as well. Some of our best friends come through this. From a business standpoint, it's never a question of ROI. We always get our value back on participation. So really for us, it's about having that sphere of influence. So we like to be at the trade shows, shaking hands, seeing everyone, because we get a new group of audience all the time. And some of them may not be familiar with us, but at least when we can get our hands on, and hopefully we'll be able to do that this year, knock on something wood like, you know, because it's extremely valuable. Actually, our entire marketing efforts for our company goes around the CGA and the events that are planned with it, because it's not just a selling platform, it's an education platform, and you build these relationships that don't feel like vendor client. It feels like people with common goals. And so we hope that we can just assist in that process.
Well said, Jason. And one final question for you today. What does the future hold for damage prevention as our resident visionary on today's call?
So, you know, this is a great question. We were having this conversation last week. We believe that the world is really to the point where data is so available, but we haven't found the right vehicle to share it yet. And so what we are hoping with the CGA and our call centers is that they become the communication hubs for this information exchange And now we're gathering more data. If you see what they're doing with technology in the field, gathering more information from the field, gathering more information through every critical step. But now we want to engage all of the stakeholders in exchanging that information. So we see a huge expansion in the role that the community has when it comes to exchanging information, from validating better maps to making sure that people feel comfortable in their locate, and that both the excavating community and the stakeholders are sharing in that conversation. And we believe that's done because the guidelines set by best practices of the CGA, and then our ability to deliver that. And we also believe that the world all wants to speak the same language. So for us, instead of trying to write something proprietary and all of that, that world's over. So what we want to do is open the doors and invite everyone to share. So what we're hoping to do is create a communication vehicle that everybody, no matter what they're using, whatever platforms they are, can speak commonly. Because I believe at the end of the day, that will allow us. We've already proven, as you said, you reduce 50% of the damages by low-hanging fruit. Now we've got to get granular, and that means a deeper dive in to truly understand what's going on. And the only way we can do that is share the information so everybody can understand how it affects them.
Jason Adams with 4IQ. Always a pleasure to talk with you, and appreciate your ongoing support. And we'll bring Jason back up at the end of the call. So OH.
IO.
A little plug in there. So rounding third and headed home on today's call. Last thing, how do you join CGA? You've heard about what we do, who we are. You've met our committee members. You've met a board of director. You've met our staff. And we want to meet you, and we welcome you to join. There's obviously a financial level to join that is palatable for all. And, you know, the old adage of membership has its privileges. As you escalate your investment, there's additional benefits that you receive. And, you know, this information is available online. And, you know, when we look at this, you know, these funds that support us as a 501c3 to help us build programs and resources and have meetings and build materials and drive research and data back to you. So, you know, when you're looking at the wide variety of membership levels that are available, you know, it really should mirror your commitment to safety and underground damage prevention. And, you know, certainly we're going through this quite quickly. I thought the bigger benefit of today's call was getting to hear directly from our members. So you'll be receiving a survey after today's webinar. We can certainly follow up with you and provide you additional information and just talk through the specific benefits with you. Also in the handout section, this has been frozen into a PDF so that you have access to these links. If you want to learn more about our work products, they're all here. These are direct, quick links for you to go and view and download these resources. Now, becoming a member gives you additional level of viewership and additional access to data and additional access to becoming involved in part of the process. But again, we never wanted to have a dollar amount be a barrier to entry here at CGA. I think one of the most valuable products we have when you become a CGA member is the ability to access and talk in real time on our CGA Engage platform. Whereas you can post a damage prevention challenge, or you can post a link to your white paper, or you can go solicit access to additional CGA members that you might want to have on your quote friends list. This is where we publish all of our meeting summaries. This is where we publish new data. This is where you get access to CGA and all of our members. And this is strictly single sign-in for our CGA members. But one of the biggest values, especially in this this time where we are interfacing much more like this instead of the face-to-face with handshakes. Additionally, I spoke to the toolkits and resources, and there's a lot of them. When you become involved with CGA, we have a litany of toolkits, and we are very nimble to current situations, whereas we have an active ongoing PSA effort for Hurricane Laura recovery down in the southeast right now in the Louisiana area. We also are quickly developing tools and resources for the wildfires that are just ravaging the Pacific Northwest there. So you have access to these materials that have been vetted and developed and are consistent and provide a safety message. I'd encourage you to follow us on social media. It's not a fad, it's here to stay. We're active on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and we'd encourage you to find us on all three of these channels to stay engaged and up to date with all things CGA. And additionally, this resource was included in that handout as well. These are our virtual business cards. You have access to all of the CGA employees and their email addresses. And certainly if you want to find out more about 3M, Centerpoint, or 4IQ, you can ping any of us directly, and we will be happy to get you in contact with Corey, Tracy, and Jason, who graciously gave of their day today to chat with us. So at this time, we're going to go full Brady Bunch reunion on you and bring all of our guest speakers back up today. And we are going to be available to answer any questions that you have and see if we can provide some answers today. So you can raise your hand. Sarah Daly can unmute you, or you can use the questions box and chat with us and see if we've got anything that we can answer today.
I got a question for the group that is related to how we provide our resources. Wanted to know if there's any plans to create a CGA app that has best practices and or the DIRT report available in it. We actually recently went through a pretty robust overhaul of our website, and we have a microsite now. You probably wouldn't notice unless you paid very close attention to the way the site was structured for the best practices. And what we focused more on is making our resources responsive. So if you're on our website, if you're on any of our tools and resources, we're moving from the website to what Christiane just pointed out, which is the Engage platform. You'll be able to do that from your phone or tablet. It helps us make sure that we are providing that access to everybody in the best format that we can, and that responsive design really seems to do the trick for us. And speaking of the DIRT report, another question we got was, when is the DIRT report going to be available? And that is next week. So we are going to host our next webinar for our membership October 14th. For those non-members, we do a lot of outreach surrounding the DIRT report and the key takeaways from that report. I think there are a lot of really interesting messages for the industry that are surfacing this year. And we continue to say they kind of are all coming together around some of the items that we've talked about today. So I got those two questions by text. Any hand raising so far?
I got a question by text too. Someone wants to know what 3M sells in the damage prevention world, Corey, and I can assure you it's more than duct tape. Tell us what your products are. First product might be unmute.
How are we doing now? Okay. So with a lot of plastic utilities, we're really, with a lot of our gas business in the CGA, a lot of our customers are gas companies, and there we'll sell a lot of electronic markers, buried markers. We also are one of the big global providers of cable and pipe locators and that kind of thing. So locating and marking type solutions.
Great. Tracy, we had one come in asking about the recovery effort down in Louisiana. How is Centerpoint faring, and what damage prevention activities have you guys activated?
That was one of those things, unless you got a chance to really see the videos and talk to everybody, you would not have believed how devastated that they were. Power was out for multiple weeks, and we have seized the EOP, emergency operating. We're kind of back to a little bit of a normal. And some of the things we had to do was, as debris was getting cleaned up, you want to make sure that folks aren't hitting above ground structures, such as the meter sets or the electric panels and all the things that, we need in place as they start to bring all of our resources back online. So a lot of signage, a lot of PSAs, and cannot thank you guys enough for the campaign and all of the support, not only with educating everybody with the radio and the TV, but just the toolkits available online was a big help and helped us all work together with that common message. We had those tools right there and was able to put them to use. But we're recovering down there. Everybody's doing well now, and we're hoping that the next thing that's out there doesn't bring any surprises.
Great. We're good to hear that, and CJ's always happy to be a part of that.
That actually brings me to another question that came in about the tools and resources we provide. And I noticed you mentioned the toolkit, Tracy. So maybe Chrisanne can provide an overview about what the toolkits are and what we provide to our members.
Yeah, that was, we use the term toolkit so universally now. It can be a myriad of resources, specifically for hurricane restoration. We were able to build out 30-second and 15-second radio PSAs within 45 minutes of Monday morning of knowing how bad the devastation was after Hurricane Laura. From there, we actually built infographics talking about the messaging of don't make a bad situation worse, of calling before you dig. Radio plays such an integrated role when you're talking about disaster recovery because so many contractors are driving in from various states. And, as a nonprofit, we're able to execute agreements. This one in particular was with the Louisiana Association of Broadcasters, where we get a little bit of money from several CGA members. And, as opposed to getting a 1-to-1 ratio, we get 4 to 6 times the ROI. So for every dollar we spent, we get $6 in ROI. So we look at those integrated toolkits, and we have them for a variety of audiences. And this committee that, Tracy co-chairs builds those tools and resources. And we learn, unfortunately, by each other. The call center in Alabama was devastated by a tornado. It was actually wiped out, and nobody better to help us build a storm restoration toolkit than Alabama 811. Mississippi 811 had their assets they provided. You don't think about the fire, but all those heavy trucks out west when they're fighting these types, they're driving over pipeline right-of-ways. There's erosion now. And, it's not necessarily the fire that can really harm our underground infrastructure. It's all that water washing away all of that. Now there's no roots with trees to hold that dirt. So you learn from your members. You can't be an expert on everything. But as Tracy said, I'll dial up the phone, I'll hit a text, and I have someone out there that's an expert and can share that information with me. And, I saw a question pop up of how do I join a CGA committee? As soon as you become a CGA member, we get you in touch with that appropriate committee. You get an email address and a password, and you are in the game and in that committee. And there's no sidelines here at CGA. Tracy will call you out and make sure you're on an active task team, and our board liaisons are active participants at all the committees. So we've got a myriad of resources at CGA. We're much more than a logo and a report. We're an active band producing a myriad of tools and resources. Sarah D., any additional questions out there or any hand raises? I'm in the Q&A box.
I'll bring my video up. We did get one question on the kind of traction. What kind of traction is the utilization of augmented reality tools getting in the industry?
That's a great question. And that's probably, I'm going to defer to some of the folks on the panel who are probably either developing, in testing, or using them. So this is really full on Brady Bunch for me right now. And I'm going to start in my Hollywood Squares version. I'm going lower left with Jason Adams with 4IQ and all things technology. Tell us about AI.
That's an interesting question. So AI, VR, there's so many new technologies that are out there that we're trying to leverage, right? So machine learning and AI, of course, is a big one for our risk assessment to understand where potential challenges start. So we are very confident in that. I've got crazy developers. I've always had them, so I've been very fortunate. Chrisanne knows most of them. So the other day while we were in Columbus, we were playing around with our first AR system. So we actually were able to physically see the lines in the ground. We were able to go outside with our glasses, our Oculus Rift, and walk outside and see where the actual lines are. So we're just a test pilot right now. We're very happy with it. In combination of our ticket management system and our education system, we're trying to help people do training with this in real time so they can see it. We still got a few steps to go till we feel confident that the lines in the ground are all documented, so sub-meter accurate, so we feel confident in it. But we're close. It's fun, and my guys built it on the side, so they even tricked me and they surprised me with it. So that's how it goes. So if you give a developer a challenge, they love doing it. But I've seen some really neat stuff in the industry, and I think going to the trade show, that's why you got to go. I mean, for me, I walk around and see what everybody else is doing, and it's great. Everything from these GPS belts to new locators to this kind of stuff. You can't really find that anywhere under one roof except for here. So I strongly encourage participation in the show.
Great, great. Tracy, anything to add to that?
One of those things, guys, that whenever you're in a committee work or you're with some of your CGA peers, the ideas come about. And whether it's virtual reality or the next great thing, or it's like there are not only all of us that have great ideas, or we have a problem and we need an idea, right? But then the solutions come about. And that's where 3M and Corey or 4IQ or any of our other partners will help us out. So whether it's think tank kind of brainstorming, however it's being done, really enjoy bringing the problems to light and using the resources we have at CGA and some of the partners that we meet there to create the new technology to help us solve all that.
Awesome, awesome. Well, listen, we are at our time limit, and I value everybody's time and participation. If we didn't get your question on today's call, you've got our contact information, and we'll get an answer to you. I want to sincerely thank Corey Wilson with 3M, Jason Adams with 4IQ, and Tracy Bryant with Centerpoint Energy, as well as my colleagues today, for jumping on this call. I learned a lot, and that's always a good meeting for me when you walk away learning something new. So thanks to everyone, and until we chat again, stay safe and stay healthy. Have a great rest of your day.